Hey everyone, it's me, Aaron, and this is Comic Class, the show every single week on this channel where we just geek out about comic books, and we're going to do that in just a second. We're talking about the brand new Uncanny X-Men #1 today. However, before we get into that, I got a little bit of business I got to talk about on this channel. Yesterday, we did our In Memoriam episode all about Stan Lee, in which I just talked about what I felt he meant to the world of pop culture and to the comic book community, and what he meant to us each, kind of not just for what he created, but him as a human being, what he meant to each of us. And I decided I was not going to monetize that video because it did not feel right to try and make money off of talking about the memory of someone who had just passed away. That seemed kind of scumbaggy to me. However, I have had YouTube in the past tell me, yeah, we can't monetize this video because our robots have determined that it might not be suitable for all ages, so we can't run any ads during it. And then I literally had someone on Twitch tell me, hey, just wondering, but why did you put 7 ads in this video today? So YouTube has come in here in the past on videos that they themselves told me, yeah, we're not gonna monetize this for you, and then loaded it with ads that I did not tell them to load it with. I mean, I only put like 1 or 2 ads in each of my videos, and they were putting 7 in a video they said they weren't going to put any in. So I went on Twitter and I said, hey guys, the Stan Lee video is not monetized because I don't want to try and make money off of talking about the memory of someone. So if you see ads on it, let me know. And literally within 10 seconds of me putting up that tweet, someone screen capped the ad that was playing on that video. So, yeah, YouTube. It's kind of a scumbag move of you, isn't it? Don't you think? Maybe? Maybe you want to address that a little bit? Maybe you want to say why you're monetizing stuff that the creator specifically said I don't want this monetized? So, seeing as how there is no real way for me to get in touch with anyone at YouTube and ask them about this, and believe me, I looked, but oddly enough, no one in the past has ever had the problem of YouTube has given me money when I asked them to not give me money. I have decided what I'm going to do is that every single amount of money, of cash, every single bit of income that I make off of that Stan Lee video, I am going to donate to the Heroes Initiative. For anybody who doesn't know what the Heroes Initiative is, it is a charity that was created to help comic book artists and writers and inkers and just basically comic book talents from every single corner of the industry who are not Stan Lee, who are not fabulously wealthy and are not able to ride on the success of their previous works for the rest of their lives. Yeah, it is a charity that was created to help those people out. So any amount of money that I'm going to make on that Stan Lee video, I am going to donate to that charity. Also, speaking of charities, do you have a bunch of comics just laying around and you're thinking of what you should do with it? Well, fellow comic book YouTuber Jawiin has decided that he is going to be part of a charity this month that donates old comics to people who are in the armed forces. It's a great cause, especially for anybody out there like me who just has a ton of comic books laying around and you're looking for what to do with them. So yeah, if you want to donate them to a good cause, I will put a link to where you can go and watch his video in the description down below, but it will also be popping up in the card right now, so you can go and check that out. Donate your books to a good cause. I just figured as long as I'm talking about one charity today, I should talk about another one as well. But there you go. That's it. It's all the business with the channel out of the way. Let's get into talking about Uncanny X-Men #1. Okay, take 2. Hey everyone, it's me, Aaron, Professor Thorgy, and welcome to another episode of Comic Class, the show every single week on this channel where we just geek out about comic books. And you know, the X-Men over the past couple of years have kind of had a wild ride over at Marvel. They've almost been wiped out, then they came back again, then they were almost wiped out again, then they came back again. But now today, it feels like they have officially returned to their former glory because Uncanny X-Men #1 came out, which was always their flagship title. However, it's not just this title returning, it's also now returning as a weekly series, at least for this first storyline, and it's being written by not 1, but 3 different major writers over at Marvel, each of whom are also helming other X-Men titles at the time. This is something really fascinating. It's what they did with Avengers when they decided to get rid of all the other Avengers books and go with Avengers No Surrender. And you guys know me, I kind of love Avengers No Surrender. I've been a long time Avengers fan, but it's been kind of a while since the Avengers felt like the Avengers that I always enjoyed, but then Avengers No Surrender came in here, and that was exactly what I loved about the Avengers. That to me was the Avengers that I had been missing for all these years. So, hey man, it looks like they're trying to do the exact same thing with the X-Men now, so I think that's a really cool idea. And I actually love each of these writers. They're writers who I haven't just been supporting at Marvel. I was supporting each of these guys back when they were indie writers. Each of the books that they did as indie writers were books that ended up on our top 100 books of the year list in the years that they came out. So the writers Ed Brisson, Kelly Thompson, and Matthew Rosenberg, it's spectacular seeing these guys all come together to work on one book. It's kind of wild that these are people who I've been cheering on for so long, and now not only are they big deals over at Marvel, they're big deals who are all coming together for one book. It's like my own personal Avengers team, which I understand is a weird metaphor to make when I'm talking about an X-Men book. I'm rambling. But let's go ahead and actually talk about the issue itself. And this issue is kind of wild. This issue, for a 10-part storyline, does not take its time. That is one of the big things that I have to give this first issue. It really hits the ground running, because it's got like 3 different storylines all going on at once, and they're all kind of a big mystery. That's something that a lot of people were wondering when they went into this book, which was, do I have to have read all the other X-Men books before I got into this one? And I can honestly say no, because I didn't. I have started reading Marvel in trade, unless it's a book that I have to talk about for the channel, simply because it's way cheaper for me, especially if you have Comicsology Unlimited. If you have Comicsology Unlimited, it's like the cost of 2 books to get an entire trade. It's an amazing deal. Again, not being paid by Comicsology, I just really think that if you want to save money on comics, Comicsology Unlimited is a great deal. But yeah, so a lot of these X-Men books I'm way behind on, so I went into this and I was like, alright, how lost am I going to be on this? And as long as you are willing to just kind of roll with the punches, which I think at this point, if you're an X-Men fan, you've kind of learned how to do that, I think you're going to be just fine. There's only like one thing in here that I was like, wait a minute, what's going on with Psylocke? What happened to her? And I had to do a quick Google search, and I was like, oh, okay, that's what happened to her. Bam, done, simple, that was it. Everything was resolved instantly on that one. So yeah, as long as you are willing to go, something weird is going on with the Multiple Man, just roll with it. You're gonna be just fine on this one. But as I said, there are multiple strange things going on. There is a pharmaceutical company that has created a cure for mutants. There is a brand new senator who's talking out about the horrors of mutants and how this cure could be an amazing thing that we have to now start administering to everyone out there to try and wipe out the mutants. And everybody's cheering this guy on. But there's also mutants whose powers are kind of fluctuating and they don't know why. Something weird goes on with Kitty Pryde. Jean Grey is having strange dreams in the night. And also, the younger X-Men have all gotten into a massive crash, and now many of them are injured, and it's looking like some of them might not be able to wake back up from it. So, holy cow, that is kind of a big deal over there. But then there's the giant, no pun intended, X factor of it all, which is that Multiple Man is now popping up all over the place, teleporting himself almost like he's time traveling, which was a thing from the miniseries, which who knew that miniseries was going to lead into this so firmly? But he's now time traveling and popping up all over the place and just kind of speaking in that weird time traveling gibberish where you don't understand what it means, but to him it makes sense because he's lived this a couple thousand times. And yeah, you have no idea what he has planned. That's definitely going to be something that builds up over the course of this entire series, where it's revealed everything that he's been trying to prevent. He keeps talking about, am I too late? I have to find Kitty Pryde. And you don't understand any of it, but it is very intriguing. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, Archangel just starts talking to God, it seems? Someone is talking to Archangel in his mind, and he is now acting incredibly different. So the X-Men are kind of being hit on all fronts here. And I will admit, when I started reading this, I thought to myself, oh, this again? That honestly was the feeling that I got for a large chunk of this book. Because I looked at this pharmaceutical company that was creating this cure for mutants, and I thought, that's exactly what they were doing in the Joss Whedon Astonishing X-Men run. And it's also kind of what happened in House of M when Scarlet Witch wiped out 90% of all the mutants. And then it's kind of what happened with the Inhuman Plague that started wiping out all the mutants. we've kind of seen this a lot over the past decade or so. It's, this has kind of been a theme that we've been getting one too many times in here. And yeah, I'll admit, I kind of rolled my eyes at that a little bit. And then we see this senator who looks exactly like every other senator who has ever spoken out against mutants up there, speaking out against mutants. And I was like, okay, yeah, we've kind of had this too. This is, I mean, again, you look at what's going on in the world today, and it's like, yeah, there would definitely be a senator out there talking about the horrors of mutants, and yeah, this is something that the X-Men should be addressing. So I can't really wag a finger at them for doing this. In fact, it is something that they should be discussing in their books. But again, if you've read X-Men for long enough, you've kind of seen all this stuff before. However, when they are at the rally for the senator, Jubilee says, yeah, doesn't it seem like we're always looking at the same senator in the same suit saying the same stuff about mutants? I was like, oh shoot, the book's actually kind of self-aware of that. And then there's the moment in which the young X-Men are fighting the Mutant Liberation Front, and they are talking about the pharmaceutical company that is trying to wipe out mutants, and one of them says, do you really want to live in a world with no more mutants? And that's literally the exact thing that the Scarlet Witch said, to wipe out all the mutants. Wait a minute, there's no way that's a coincidence. I'm getting a feeling reading this, like all of the similarities, all the things that I am seeing in here that I've seen so many times from the X-Men is kind of being done on purpose. I feel like this isn't just all a coincidence. This feels to me like the storyline of this book might be something is creating all the X-Men's nightmares all at once. All the things that have haunted them in the past are kind of coming together right now, and something is bringing them all about at the same time. And honestly, that's a really cool idea for an X-Men book. Especially when basically the premise of this Uncanny X-Men run is, hey man, it's a book for the X-Men fans. It's a book where we're going to see every single X-Men. We're going to see all their greatest enemies in here. I mean, when you start off with the Mutant Liberation Force in there, I went, oh wow, it's the B-class Brotherhood of Mutants. Yeah, who even remembers those guys? It's kind of cool that they're the guys we get in the first issue, because you know it's only going to go up from there. We're going to keep getting more stuff. It's going to keep amping up the stakes from there. That's kind of awesome that they were like, no, we're going to include everybody. We're going to include everybody on this. So it kind of feels to me like when they say that this is for the X-Men fans out there, that's kind of why they're bringing back all of the X-Men's greatest hits. Because it's not the idea of, hey, we'll just do the same old thing again. It's, oh my goodness, all of our worst fears are happening at the same time. And I really want to know what it is that's doing that, because there's also a moment in here in which Storm and Beast are in this desert, and the desert is flooding. It's been raining more in a couple of days than it has in decades over there, and it's forming lakes over there, and the lakes already have fish growing in that, coming to life in that lake, and water-specific algae and vegetation growing up here. Something is creating life in this desert, and Storm has said, I've tried to stop this before it floods everything. The weather won't listen to me. It really feels like we're getting into some, like, there's a god that's messing with them territory. And mild spoiler, this is not a spoiler for what happens in the actual issue, but they have revealed the covers to future issues. And you do see that Nate Gray, aka X-Man, will be returning. And Nate Gray, before he disappeared, was claiming himself to be the mutant messiah. And now he's returning, and he's basically mutant Jesus. He's there in the giant robes, the long beard, and you look at that and it's like, okay, this really feels like the X-Men versus God is what the storyline of this is going to be. And I'm very intrigued by where that could possibly go. I'm especially intrigued by all that because I will not spoil how this book ends. Not going to spoil that at all. You guys are just going to have to go out there and look it up for yourself, or find one of the dozen other YouTubers out there who do spoil this stuff. It's the internet, I can't really prevent that stuff from happening. But at the end of this, it also kind of sets up, oh, this is going to be kind of a strange bedfellows kind of storyline, because Kitty Pryde finds herself in a room with someone else, and with a second someone else. And the first someone else you look at is like, okay, well, that person was set up in this storyline, so okay, I can see that's going to be a thing between the two of them kind of interacting. That'll be very interesting. And then they revealed the second someone else. I went, oh wow, when you said that you were doing the X-Men's Greatest Hits, and you were bringing everybody together, you weren't lying. That is exactly what this looks like here at the end. And that reveal there at the end is the thing that really got me excited for this. That's the thing that made me say, okay, you're not holding anything back, and I really want to see where you go with this. I am incredibly excited to see what comes at issue 2. However, I feel like this issue overall is kind of a mixed bag, because that right there, what I just described to you, was part 1 of this X-Men Disassembled storyline, which, again, you talk about how you've seen stuff before. I'm honestly kind of in that camp right now where it's like, I don't really need to ever hear the phrase disassembled at Marvel ever again. Like, if they want to make Avengers 4 called Avengers Disassembled, fine, you've earned that one, but, as for, like, the actual comic source material here, I've seen Disassembled so many times. Didn't we even already have X-Men Disassembled? Didn't we already do that when Wolverine and Cyclops split apart and went their own separate ways and formed their own teams? If I really want to say that we have seen that title before. It's been used. It's done. I'm done with Disassembled as a title. But that was part 1 of X-Men Disassembled. However, this book is 63 pages long, and I gladly would have stuck with that one storyline for 63 pages. I was excited to see where they were going to go, because when it got to that big reveal of who that second someone was, I went, oh man, I'm only like a third of the way through this book. I cannot wait to see what they're going to do with the rest of it. And the rest of it is that thing that I've talked about here before that honestly really bugs me when Marvel decides to make these extra-sized giant issues, where they will have the main storyline still be the size of a regular issue, and then the rest of the book is just going to be backup stories. And sometimes that works. Sometimes that works because the backup stories tie very directly into the main storyline, and it enhances that, and that's great. And these backup stories, it definitely looks like it's giving you information that you will need to know for the future of this storyline. It looks like the stuff that they introduce in these backup issues, in these backup stories, definitely will be important. So, okay, I'll give them some points on that one. However, yeah, the backup stories aren't nearly as good as the main story was. And when you buy a book for $8, which I will say, for me, it was only $6.50 because, again, I read on Comixology Unlimited, and Marvel Comics there are 15% off. Again, not being paid by Comixology, I just think it's important for anybody out there who buys a lot of Marvel Comics to know you can get them for cheap on Comixology Unlimited. But yeah, I was looking at that, and I just thought, you know what, for $8, I really didn't care that much about the backup stuff. It felt like kind of jumbled, in all honesty. Like, the tones of them, of each of the backup stories, just kind of felt a little bit random and all over the place. The changing art styles in there didn't really give it a cohesive feeling to it. Not that any of the artists were bad, there were great artists in there. Not that any of the writing was bad, the writing was great. But in the first storyline, the main storyline, you can kind of tell that each of these 3 writers were all coming together and creating one thing together. But the backup stories were each focusing on different characters. And it was 3 mini-stories focusing on different characters. And yeah, I couldn't help it. It kind of just felt to me more like completely different storylines. And all the storylines then intersect at the end. But it didn't really feel natural. It kind of felt like just placing random objects together. That's the best way that I can describe it. It just didn't quite have that flow and felt a little bit jumbled there towards the end. And honestly, even though I know that all that stuff is going to be important to the future of the storyline, I kind of wish that maybe you had just put out like X-Men Disassembled number 0 and made the last 42 pages of this book just that thing there. And then in issue number 1 of Uncanny X-Men, you just had that big page at the front that just went, here's all the things that have recently happened that you might need to know about. And then I could just read that and find that out. I would far rather have just paid $4 for this book and just gotten that first storyline, because that definitely was the strongest part of this book. And when you read the strongest part of this book first, and then you go into the remaining 42 pages, and they just kind of feel a little bit more random, a little bit more all over the place, it doesn't quite work as well for me. It did kind of tamper down my excitement on this. So in the end, I didn't really feel like I had just paid $8, or again, $6.50 for me, for 63 pages of a comic. It felt more like I had paid $6.50 for a normal 21-page issue of a comic, and then I just had a bunch of random stuff there at the end. So, again, I know the random stuff at the end is definitely going to play into this. I know that's definitely what's going to happen, but it wasn't nearly as entertaining as the first part, and I feel like I would far rather have read about what happened in maybe a little backup summary thing. That's just my feelings on it. But again, if I just put that remaining 2/3 of this book out of my mind, I just focus on the first part of this book, it looks good. It looks fun. The only complaint I had was that, I've seen all this stuff before, but it feels like that's the feeling you're supposed to get, because it feels like they're doing that on purpose because it's all leading towards something. And that actually feels like if that's what they're doing, that's kind of genius. And it has me really excited and intrigued to see what happens with all this. But is it worth picking up this first issue for $8? I can't really entirely get behind that. I would recommend people just wait for this to be out in trade, except this is a weekly series. And with a weekly series, the trade might come out after the entire thing is done with, and then you won't be able to catch up with any of it. So, it's kind of an odd situation, in all honesty. So, honestly, I think the best way that I can describe this is, how big of an X-Men fan are you? Are you a massive X-Men fan? Are you just excited to see these characters back again? Then you are going to love this book. But if you're just like, I've always kind of been a casual X-Men fan, maybe I'll check this out. I can't entirely recommend it for $8. So that is really what I'm getting at in this. But I personally, speaking as myself in my own personal opinion, I am excited for the rest of this thing, and I am going to keep checking out the rest of this storyline. I do want to see what ends up becoming of all these characters. Just, again, issue number 1, it's kind of rough with that remaining 42 pages in there. I would far rather have just had the main storyline be the entire 63 pages. And in all honesty, today, for $5.99, Avengers issue number 700 came out, and that had the main storyline be roughly 30 pages of that 48-issue story, and the remaining backup stories were actually way more entertaining, and they actually felt way more like they were going to tie into what the main storyline was. I kind of look at that right there and just be like, that's kind of what I wanted this to be. I kind of feel like that's what we should have gone with, that format right there. But again, that's just my personal opinion about this. Also, speaking as somebody who has spent years saying it's time that a lot of these younger X-Men graduate, you really get that sense from this book. This is going to be the storyline where they finally graduate and join the official team. And I'm very excited about that, because they even bring up in this book how they've kind of been on this team forever and have not been gained respect. So again, that's another thing that I want to point in here real quick and just applaud. Because goddamn, Rockslide has been a student at this school for freaking ever. He was a student at this school longer than X-23 was a student at this school, and X-23 is now an official member of the X-Men. How did that happen? Anyway, so I am excited for where this is going to go, but let me know your thoughts on this issue in the comments down below. And again, if you want to donate to any of those charities that we spotlighted at the beginning of this, I'll put links to where you can contact those charities in the description down below as well. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. We will be back next week with another comic class, but make sure that you stay tuned this weekend for our brand new movie reviews. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Come back next time. Bye.